Hi, my name's Irrelevant, and today I need to do a little bit of setup and tuning on my Jaguar bass. As the story goes, I had this thing tuned up to something stupid like drop A sharp with 145 gauge strings. Now, I recently reset it back up to standard D with 110 gauge strings, a little bit higher than the normal 105s. The only problem is the neck, she did one of these. Beep. It looks like that string change and that tuning change puts more tension on the neck than the lower tuning with the heavier strings. Now, what this means now is that the geometry of the bridge and the strings is kind of going a bit off, so that when I finger here in the middle, I end up with a situation where, you know, the string's going to be hitting frets down about here. And it's funny how that happens when your truss rod gets a bit too loose. The geometry of the neck can actually bend lower than the body itself. Now, when the neck's set up correctly, it's going to be mostly straight with just the slightest bowing upwards, right? And then your string geometry is going to be pretty straightforward. This isn't the best drawing, but I think you get the point. Now, of course, actions can be set up to taste. There are some people who set it up really tight, and some people who might set up their neck really straight. But generally, what I just showed you is what I was going for. Now, I've already gone ahead and started the truss rod adjustment on this. In fact, it's complete now. I have this big long Allen key here that I bought specifically for doing truss rods, and you kind of slot it into this hole right here. Hopefully your guitar has a hole there. Some of them, I don't know what they were thinking, but they put it down here, and some of them you're lucky if you could even access it. If you have one of those, well, I feel sorry for you, son. I don't know what to tell you. I got 99 problems, but adjusting my truss rods isn't one. Now, when you're adjusting on your tripod, it's a slow process, a process you want to take slow. And quite frankly, it's one of those things I've been doing for so long, I don't even remember why I do it like this. I just know that I do it like this. Now, obviously, you have the typical lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. You know, going this way is going to tighten the truss rod, and going this way is going to loosen it. Loosening it, going to bow the neck more forward. Tightening the truss rods is going to pull it back. So what you're going to do is you're going to do but a quarter turn. That's it. You can't reef on your truss rod. You need to give the wood in the neck time to settle, right? So I do a quarter turn a day. Adjusting a truss rod, it could take up to a week, the way I do it. Anyway, some people say you only have to let it wait an hour, maybe, you know, a couple hours. I give it a whole day, but I'm usually not in a rush to get this done. So what I do is I'll do a quarter turn, then I'll let it sit for a day, do another quarter turn. Usually, on average, you don't need more than 2 or 3 iterations of that to get it settled, right? Truss rods can migrate naturally with weather changes. You might, for a guitar you play regularly, you might need a slightly different truss rod adjustment in the winter than you do in the summer. If you reef on your truss rod a little bit too much, you risk damaging or warping your neck, and you really don't want that. You also want to avoid extreme temperature changes, right? So say you have a gig during the winter, you're gonna put it in your case, you're gonna bring it to your car, you're gonna transport it. You're not gonna leave it in the car. Your guitar sleeps where you sleeps. If you gotta park somewhere and go inside to an after party or hotel room, you take your guitar with you. If it's been sitting in the car for a while, like you had to do some traveling, don't take it out right away. I will let it sit in its case inside overnight to reacclimatize. Extreme temperature changes or possibly leaving it out in the cold too long can really screw up your neck. I had that happen to me before. So now what has to happen is I have to adjust my action here, because now that the truss rod's straighter, my action went a little bit low. So I have to bring up the saddles here. And then once I do that, I have to intonate it, because such a profound string gauge and tuning change of that nature, it's going to throw off the intonation. Now, if you don't remember what intonation is, I have discussed it before. It has to do with the position of the notes along the fretboard, right? The notes on the string have to line up with the frets on the neck. Otherwise, when you fret a note, you're going to get the wrong note. In this case, it's pretty simple. The 12th fret, which is often signified by being, 2 spaces different from the rest of them, that guy is going to be the same note as the string in a hole. It's just going to be an octave higher. So this should be, it's probably not a proper D right now because it's out of tune, but whatever this open note is, that should be the same. It does sound roughly close, but still. I'm going to start by bringing up, try to do better. And you pretty much just have to feel it out. Alright, not too much buzz there, not too much buzz. Bring up the next one a little touch here. I think the next one was still okay. A little bit more. There we go. There's a little buzz there, but I'm pretty high up on the neck. And I don't often play all the way up there, so I'm not too worried about it. But that's basically what you're doing. You're raising these until you find a good ratio of action feel, because you don't want to be pressing 15 feet down to fret the string, but you also need to get it to the point where it's not going to buzz on you. I need quite a bit more. All right, now let's see how this is. That's better. Looks like I can use a little bit more on the big strings. Unfortunately, the bigger the string, the more it wobbles, the more action it's going to need. You don't want to bring it up too much or else it's uncomfortable to play. All right. I think that's a good compromise now. The action's still reasonably low. It comes down to technique at that point. But now we have to do the excellent, awesome sauce, opportunity situation, blah, 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 of tuning and intonating it. Fortunately, it's nowhere near as irritating as intonating something like a Floyd or a guitar with a floating bridge. Pretty much once I tune a string, it's gonna stay there, unless the tension is so profound that it causes the neck to flex a bit, changing the tension on the other strings. Generally, a fixed bridge guitar is quick and easy to intonate. That said, something you do have to consider if you're intonating your guitar is the relative position of it, right? Because believe it or not, some guitars, if you tune them holding it, their tuning might change if you set them sideways, especially ones with floating bridges. I've noticed that. This one, I don't expect a problem, but however, if I lay the neck down, yeah, you can't hear that, but just the act of laying the neck down lowered the pitch a bit, which means we can't intonate it in this position. We're gonna have to do it pretty much like this. Now, you kind of need to have a good tuner. This tuner, it's a Korg DT4 chromatic. Don't know if they make this anymore. I've had this one for a while, but I love this tuner because it's easy to see from far away. Nothing's more irritating than you're trying to intonate and set up a guitar, and you got this little tuner with this little friggin' digital display, and you got a and my other one, oh my god, it would automatically turn off on you. So, this has to be D. Wow. G. As you can see, the adjustment I did to the bridge changed the tuning. Bringing the saddles up pulled the strings a bit to a higher pitch. D, G, C, F. And you gotta make sure you give them a nice tug. Now, when tuning a guitar that has a standard nut, what I like to do is not necessarily, when you tune up, you're pulling tension through the nut. But when you tune down, the string can get subtly hung up on the nut just enough that you're not going to hit true tension until you give it a tug to pull it back through the nut. So I have a tendency to not tune downwards. I'll loosen tension here, pull the tension, and then tune back upwards. I find I get better tuning stability if I do it that way. Sometimes, if you find that your tune is a bit too high and you got to bring it down, instead of turning the knob, just give the string a nice pull. Sometimes that little stretch is all you need to get it to come down a bit. See, that's C, and now it's lower. And now I can pull it taut. That's one of the differences between high-end guitars and lower-end guitars. This one isn't low-end, it's not high-end either, it's somewhere in between. Higher-end guitars will have better quality nuts that are better fitted, so the string can slide smoothly through it, as opposed to cheaper ones might just have a cheap plastic nut, and the string will get hung up. And that's one of the issues with tuning stability. As you play the guitar, you kind of need the string to be able to move freely past the nut. If you have a guitar that you're having trouble keeping in tune, that could be one of the things that's going wrong with it. Now that it seems relatively in tune, I'm going to move to the intonation. So, that's D. That should be D. Oh look, it's a little bit off. Now, if as you can see, the pitch is too high and the note has to go lower, in order to do that, you need to pull the saddle down. You need to stretch the string, you need to make it physically longer. It's because the note is high here, but the actual note might be just like a little bit over there. So you have to bring the string longer to match up the note you want to the position of the fret. Now you make a subtle adjustment, now you got to retune. And then try again. And you just kind of repeat this process back and forth till you're done. Oh, getting closer. Need a little bit more. Be advised, sometimes there's diminishing gains. There is the odd time when no matter how much you tune on it, you just can't quite get that note to line up. That's rare though. Oh, yeah, it's close. It just needs a little bit more. Look at that. Now it's on. Let's move on to the next string. G. Hey! That one's pretty damn close. We're just going to give it a little bit more. There we go. Remember, don't tune down. Drop it, pull it, then tune up. C's on. And F's on. Now we're pretty much done. This thing should be completely intonated. Now, that said, you're gonna notice an intonation glitch less on a bass. Where you notice it more is on a guitar when you're doing chords and you start chording up here. If those notes don't line up, then you have a situation where the chord just doesn't sound right. In a bass, it's possible to not notice at all. And as expected, this thing was really quick and easy to tune up. For reference, more information, some of you guitar geeks out there might want to know a little bit more about the instrument itself. This is a Mexican-made Fender Jaguar bass. Now, some of the nice Jaguars out there are made in Japan. That's kind of one of their shticks, unless that's changed recently. Now, this particular one is a Silverburst, and it's actually a Troy Sanders signature issue. That's the bassist from Mastodon. I like that band. I like that band. I've listened to them quite a bit. I didn't get this because it was the Mastodon signature. I got this because I wanted a friggin' Jaguar bass. The Silverburst looked awesome, and it was cheaper, I think, than other Jaguar basses, like the legit Jaguar basses. And, well, furthermore, it was in stock because it was the new thing at the time. Being Mexican made, that's the best I can usually afford. The American ones are a bit unobtainium to me. And it's pretty a simple situation here. It just has, oh, I think I should tighten that up while I'm here. It's got your volume and it's got your blend. So middle is both pickups. That way is the center pickups. This way is the bridge pickups. I usually use it always in the center. Some guitars, they'll have individual pots for the pickups, or I should say some basses. And then up here, it actually has an active preamp built in. If you switch it up here, you have bass and treble settings to boost those frequencies. Sometimes I like it with just a little bit of bass boost, just to say like maybe one little, you know, all the way down, just one little snare up like that, just to say. That's how I'll use it if I use it. Otherwise, I leave that turned off quite a bit. Now, that's because it's got active electronics. Of course, it has a battery in it. And sometimes that's disappointing because I've seen individuals who, quite misfortunate, had their battery die on them during a gig, or had something go wrong with the electronics during the gig and they weren't getting power to their pickups. But in this case, these are passive pickups. They don't need power to run. This only works the preamp. And one nice thing about this particular bass guitar is if you don't need the preamp, you don't need power. You can run this guitar without a battery in it, and as long as you have the preamp shut off, you're good to go. So, you know, I have quite a few guitars, and in the next little while, I'm going to be going through them to redo some of them. You know, some of them are well overdue for a string change. And maybe a little bit of setup. So, tune in if you like that sort of thing. But I'm done with this guy. Now I can go play it.